Hello. This, my friends, is the tutorial video for the Tapestry chain earrings and bracelet kits. This chain is this awesome faceted chain. You can't really see it that well on the yellowy one. The green teal color you can see a lot better. See? Oh, it's so good. There'll be two different colorways. There will be the neon yellow colorway and the teal colorway. The main steps for doing the bracelet or the earrings is the same. So creating the square stitch woven pieces. And then at the end, I'm going to show you the two different ways to finish them off, either as the bracelet or the earrings. If you have not seen my videos before, my name is Jillian, and I do go on tangents, so I apologize ahead of time. But welcome. So I may be off a step or two sometimes. I may be doing, step 7 before step 8 or 8 before 7 or whatever. I will be generally on track. Okay? We got this. I know you guys really like seeing how to thread the needle, so we're going to ignore my band-aids and my owies because that's life. Those are real life things. So you pull your thread down between your fingers. I then take my beading needle and I push down on top of it. And that, my friends, is how I thread my needle because reading glasses. They're our friends, and I'm not just going to keep trying to stab at the needle and try and get the thread in. Stopper bead. So I'm using a size 11 spare bead I have. You will get stopper beads in your kit for this one. About 10 inches from the end. That way you know you have plenty of spare thread. And when you tie on a stopper bead, in my experience, you actually tie your little loop and your bead is part of the loop. It's in the loop because then you can shift it up and down the thread if you need to quite easily. So we're off to a great start. Just very direct, not too many tangents yet. Don't even know that you guys can call me out on any tangents yet because I deleted those ones. Okay, so we are starting with our first 4 beads. Now, there are a bunch of different color palettes here. Even the color palettes between the teal chain and the neon chain are the palette's the same. The order of the colors is different. So the one I'm doing right now might be different than the one you're doing. So do pay attention to your pattern map, okay? So I'm picking up my first 4 beads. We're just letting those slide all the way down to our stopper bead. Then I'm going to go in the same direction. So I'm going up through the bottom of the beads and going the same direction through them again to create a loop. So we start with what's called a ladder stitch. So we are going to do this snugly. So you pull it nice and tight so that they're sitting paired up like that, okay? They will sit a little nicer. When you pull cylinder beads tight, they're going to go to the area of least resistance, which is pulling the top 2 towards each other. Don't panic about that yet. Once you have more beads on there, that won't be happening. So we're basically doing a bunch of figure 8s. We're going to add our next 2 beads. We're going to go down the same direction. So our thread is coming out the bottom, so we're heading towards that same one again to create another loop. Loop. I definitely enunciate my words. And then we went back up through, so a bunch of figure 8s, right? So adding 2 beads, just 2, heading towards the thread that's coming out the top there, pulling it nice and snug, and then going down through the next 2 that we just added to secure them on there. Okay, so 2, oh, I don't like that bead. We need to get that little bead. We are culling him out of there. Goodbye, little buddy. Hope you find your dad. Down through this one. If you didn't get that, that was an elf reference. Oh, shoot. I gotta take that call. Give me a second. Oh my God, you guys. I had to take that phone call because it was my boyfriend calling from the grocery store. We're snowed in right now, and I sent him with the grocery list. That was a bit scary for me because I do all the grocery shopping. So he really needed to make sure he got the right things. This is one of those tangents we were talking about. Anywho, we're looping back around. We're pretending nothing happened. We're pretending real life isn't real life, right? Oh God, boy, are we pretending real life is not real life. I would just like to send out a lot of love to everybody. Period. Looping around, adding 2 more beads. Oh goodness. Okay, so we have 6 sets of 2 beads. That is our beginning row. Da 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 da. Our thread is coming out the bottom. We always want to end a row with our thread coming out the top, and we loop around all the time. So there we go. So this is what I would call snug tension, not tight. So snug just means everything is sitting nicely, close together. You're not pulling crazy tight on it each time because we are going to want to be able to get in between our rows like this. Okay, so try not to make it harder on yourself. Snug. So no loose threads, everything's sitting nicely, snuggled up against each other. So depending on your kit, your colorway, which one of your earrings or woven pieces you're working on, look at your pattern. What do you pick up next? So you're going to pick up whatever's above this one and that one, right? So we're on mine, I'm picking up red and red. Okay, so when you're doing square stitch, it's very similar to brick stitch. When you start your row, you're picking up double your beads. So I'm picking up 2 if I'm doing 1 the rest of the row. Okay, so picking up 2 beads. And again, square stitch is figure 8s. Okay, that's you're just doing figure 8s the whole time. So if I'm starting off over here, I'm figure 8ing one way. If I'm starting off out of this bead, I'm figuring out a different way, figure 8ing a different way. If you look on the bottom of page 8, there's no 8 pages, page 1 for the figure 8s, you'll see the diagrams. So in this particular example, I'm doing diagram B. Okay, so I go down, right, because we're looping and we're only going back through 1 bead in only the 1 previous row before. So I'm down through this one. So now I'm going up through his next door neighbor and the bead we just added. So there is our loop for that one. Now we add our next 2 beads. Next 1 bead. See, I was a liar there. 1 bead, just kidding. Were you paying attention? Okay, so now that I'm adding this 1 bead, I'm doing diagram, that's right, diagram A for bead weaving. So I go down through that one, right, up through the neighbors because we want to secure him with all his neighbors. Some people just go on to the next one. I don't. Okay, so I looped around and now I'm going up to add my next bead. So now we are doing diagram B for the bead weaving, where we go down through that guy and then we go back up through the ones we just added. Got it? So now we're doing diagram, that's right, A again, down, up, down, and out. Okay, and so our last little bead we're adding, so this is diagram B on your last one, and we're going down to add him and up to start our next row. Dee 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 dee. Right? So now we are starting the next row and it looks like a mirror version of A. Okay? So my beads that I'm picking up our 2 yellows. So I go down through the next one, right? Creating my loop. So I go back up over here, make sure I'm securing them. And back up. Ready? Oh, that happens all the flipping time. So that is why we are going to, you will notice in your kit, there's 2 pieces of thread to complete each woven piece. You don't want to have a huge, crazy long piece of thread. It's better to have shorter threads and it not fray and it get caught and you feel super annoyed very quickly when trying to create your beadwork. So your piece is done in 2 threads per woven section. Grabbing my bead, because I'm coming out right there, we're going backwards through the neighbors. Up through the one we just added and his downstairs neighbor. Like an apartment building. Oh, I just realized that. So we grab a bead. This time we go to the downstairs neighbors first. Then we go back next door and up. Back, looping around, nice and secure, right? Dee, 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 dee. Down through there, up through the next one that we just added, and then we're going to add our last little buddy here. I was going to say little friend. Okay, and we're in the same position that we started in the previous row. Okay, so looking at our map, I'll show you one more time how we're doing this. So down through that guy, up through the next little friendy. There we go. Adding the next friend. Don't panic about how this corner guy is sitting, because by the time you get to the beads above him, the threads basically are all pulling in different directions each time you start a new row and add another bead. The fact that we are pulling from the left and then pulling from the right, it kind of causes the bead to have tension this way and tension this way, tension up and tension down. So it causes them to sit nicely and line up. Back down through the one we added and up through the spot to add the next one. Square stitch is, to me, similarly meditative to peyote stitch, because you're adding one at a time and you're focusing on getting that thread untangled all the time. Oh my God, that's annoying. Little knotted buddy. He's not going to actually cause us a big problem in this. So if you have that happen where you have a little knot in this particular type of beading, that is not going to cause you a big problem. It'll be annoying until you pass by it, but it won't cause a problem. Yeah. I like to think I'm a multitasker, but apparently I'm not. What I was trying to say is that square stitch is very meditative and relaxing to do. It is. I love doing square stitch. Peyote is still going to be my forever favorite, but square stitch is so nice because it causes you to slow down and enjoy the process. And really, be aware of each time that little stupid knot keeps getting caught up in threads. Ooh, it's so annoying. Okay, anywho. So you are going to continue going. You're going to keep going, right? You're going to keep beading. So in the instructions, it tells you that each piece of thread is for about half of your woven section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do about half of my woven section on my own here. You're going to do yours, and we're going to meet when it's time to end this thread and add the new thread. Okay? So keep going with your pattern, keep playing with your beads. We are going to meet up basically at the top of page 2 whenever you're ready. Okay? So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we are going to change threads. I just wanted to show you. So I'm adding my last bead on this particular row. Because it goes down, I don't want it to feel loosey-goosey, so I'm just going to loop around it an extra time before I secure it. So when you are doing this, this is part that's not really shown or described on the sheet, so it's kind of helpful to be looking at the video here. You want your needle to be coming out on the side where you're next to the threads. So we've been facing this side towards us the whole time, so our threads are at the bottom of each row, okay? And because I'm coming out the bottom of the bead, I want to be where my thread, the little like bridge threads are, because then it hides our weaving around. Okay, so I came out the bottom there. I actually want to go down a few more rows to hide this. So I'm just popping back inside the beads here for a sec. We're going to come out down here. Okay, so I'm on the side that faced towards me. I am going to hide this little loop around by just nestling it up against the other bridge that's there. Okay, so I'm going up through 3. Okay, and I'm coming out my back side because the back side, the thread bridges are on the top of the bead row, right? And that way I'm going to hide that one. So you see what I'm doing there? So that thread bridge on the front side hid with that one. So now this one's going to hide there. I'm going to go down through a bunch more beads, come out the bottom of my front because there's my thread bridges. I'm going to loop around back on itself again, meaning I'm going back to the previous row I was in and I'm coming out the other side. So my point in the diagram that is on the weaving sheet is the diagram shows you go down and around on itself. As long as you're going down and over and change rows and back and over and change rows, it's just you're needing to bury your thread and create a bit of resistance, so you're changing rows a bit, right? So I came down and over and back and up like that. And now I'm just going to pull it off. There's no knotting required in this one because that resistance and the fact that we've woven around these sections so many times with our figure eights is it's nice and secure. So I'm going to leave that there so I remember where it was. I'm going to grab my next piece of thread, which in my world means I'm measuring it out real quick. And cut it off. You guys get the same thread off of the same roll that I use because we're friends like that. So we are going to thread our little needle the same way we always do. Oh, now you're getting a bit of a song. I don't know if that's good. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing in reverse. We're going to bury our thread a bit and we want to come back out the top. Now, does it really matter which side we come back out on? No, it really doesn't. You can come back out on the other side if you like because you buried your thread over here. Kind of treat it like a brick stitch when you're adding your fringe to the brick stitch portion, where you would then go to the opposite side so you're not putting too many threads through the beads. Now, the cylinder beads do have a lot more room in them for threads, so it's not as much of a concern, but square stitch, you go through them quite a few times. So personally, I am going to choose to come out on the other side or add on the other side. Totally do whatever you want. So I'm looking at my back side and I know because I left my tail there. So I am going to do the same thing. Start on my back side. Not going to make any jokes. We're just gonna bead. And I want it to come out on the front side so that I can hide in the thread bridge, right? So pull until I have a shorter tail this time. And I'm going to just make sure I'm keeping an eye on that tail. Now I'm going to hide up here just by a few beads, not many. Oh, I'm going like way the wrong direction here. Where am I? No, I'm not. I'm doing the right thing. Okay. So I'm just going up through a few beads and exiting out the top over here somewhere. That way, that thread that I'm adding, again, it's hiding with the thread bridge, right? So that way you don't see it. Now I'm going to head back over towards the side that I actually want to work on. How did I get over so many? That's my tail. Oh, I almost went the wrong direction. That's okay. It wouldn't have been a big deal. So we're going down through a few here. If you feel resistance, either just keep going or pull back a bit and pick a different one. So I went down through a handful of them. It feels snug, but I'm not feeling resistance. So you'll get used to that difference. You do not want to break a bead, which in this particular pattern shouldn't be a problem because the amount of times and the thread I'm sending you and the beads you're using should not cause that problem. So again, I hid my little thread in the thread bridge, and now we're just going to run it up the side here and come out the top where we're going to start adding more beads. So now, because I know which side I'm looking at when I'm creating, I'm looking at the side where the thread bridges are coming out the bottom of the row. I don't really need to see these tails to know which is my good side or my bad side. So I'm just gonna get rid of these little tails. You can either snip them really nice and close with scissors, or if you happen to have one of these handy dandy little zappas, you can use one of those. So now I'm gonna go back to what I was doing. So at this point, if you are doing the bracelet kit, you are going to bead until the spot that says stop here point. If you are doing the earrings, you're going to keep going until you get to the end of the woven section. So we are going to do the bracelet portion first, and then we're going to do the earring portion. So I will put a little note on the description as to where you're going to jump forward to if you're doing the earrings. And if you're doing the bracelet section, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to keep beading until my little stop point, and then we're going to meet there, okay? Because you're going to do both your woven pieces until the spot where it says stop here point, okay? That's where you're going to meet me. If you're doing the earrings, you're going to check the notes under this video down there, down that way, and see what number you're going to fast forward to on this video, what time stamp. Okay, so I'll see you in a second, really, because magic. Hello, bracelet making peoples. Oopsie. Okay, so I've stopped on this one at the stop here point. On my other one, I did go longer because I was pre-prepping it and I do know how long my bracelet needs to be. So the main point here is you should have two pieces. In theory, yours both look like this. Okay, you have tail pieces off the top, and we are going to add the chain before you finish the length of the bracelet, because that's going to be much easier for you to determine the length that you need. So we are going to remove our little stopper beads, which you can just take your needle and wiggle inside that loop that your stopper bead is in. And I pulled that off. And now I'm going to pull the stopper bead off the other side. So my needle's just between my stopper bead. It's inside that loop, and I'm pulling the bead off. Okay. So I have my two pieces of beadwork. That is the front side on each of them. And then I'm going to grab my chain, as you would, the chain that's going to go between them. In the bracelet, they're all the same length. Okay? So you're going to lay them out in front of you, ready to be picked up with your little needle. And yes, your needle's going to fit through the hole in that chain. And if that's hard to see, you should definitely have glasses on. I have my reading glasses on. We're going to start with one side of it, and we're going to add all the chain through that side. Now, sometimes you may run into a little finicky piece of chain that has a little split in it. And that piece of chain just needs to flip around inside its chain link here. It's going to happen very, very rarely. But if it does happen to you, you're going to kind of just keep picking it up and kind of shake it around a bit so that that loop flips around. It happens very rarely. Don't panic. So pick one end or the other that you're going to start picking pieces up through. There's my little piece. To test if it is one of those pieces, you're just going to give it a little gentle pull like that. See? And it stays just fine. So what I do to add my piece of chain, and again, I'm making sure I'm looking at, on this one, we want to be looking at the bottom side because we want our thread bridges to be hidden, right? So I'm looking at my back side of my beadwork. So I'm going up the same bead that this thread is coming out of, okay? And I'm going to go up 3. You can go up 2, you can go up 3, you can go up 4 if you want. The instructions say 2. I'm going to go up 3 just because I can. And you're going to pull it taut. So our little buddy is hanging there. And now we're going to go down through the neighbors and come out through that bead. Again, you're looking at the back so that this little bridge we just added is hidden with the other bridges. Now we're going to pick up our next one. We're going to let it drop down and we're going to just give it a little pull to make sure it's, yep, holding just fine. So again, go up a few rows, 2-3 rows, whatever you feel comfortable with. And we're going to pull it taut and go down through the neighbor. Easy peasy, right? Next one. Give it a little test. We're good. I'm looking at the wrong side, so I'm going to flip it over, get my thread untangled, and go up through these buddies. Okay. Make sure nobody's getting caught up. You want to catch mistakes as they happen, like thread mistakes or, chain getting caught up. Because it is annoying to go back and have to fix these things. But you do have extra thread in case you need to do that. Come on, little buddy. Picking up my next buddy. Giving him a little test. He's good. These chain pieces in your kits come pre-measured, pre-cut, so you're not having to stress about that. Just in case you were wondering. All right, last couple that we're adding here. And when I say pull on your chain, don't flip and rip on it. Just give it a little tuggy tug. Up through the last few beads. And I'm going to add our last piece of chain. And again, this is the tail that the stopper bead was holding, right? Just in case that wasn't super obvious in the video, which it should have been. Giving that a little pull. That's our last one. And up through our friends here. So I'm going to be going up more because I'm going to hide my thread. I'm going to bury my thread in here, okay? So I went up, I don't know, what is that, 7 rows, 8 rows? I went up 8 rows, I'm going to go down a couple rows. And again, because I want to align with where my thread bridges are, I'm flipping it over so that I see the front piece where my bridge is. Go up some more rows. Main thing to pay attention to during this stage is just, are you getting a lot of resistance with putting your needle through there? Does it feel okay putting your needle through there? Right? You don't want to break a bead at this stage because it is super annoying. All right. So again, I'm on the front side, so I'm just going to bury it one last little time so it comes out on the back. And then I'm going to get rid of that little tail. So we've attached our chain. It's the same idea when you're attaching chain to the earrings, but you need to lay them out in a certain certain order and blah, blah, blah. So if you're doing earrings, there you will see in the notes below this video where to be fast forwarding to. I'm just gonna get rid of my little thread there. Again, we're looking at the back side, so if there's a little nubbin of thread showing, that's totally fine. So we've attached our thread to one side of this bracelet. Now we are going to attach, or we attach the chain to one side of the bracelet. So now we're going to attach the chain to the other side. I find it extra handy to take my piece and pull it like that so I can see the ends of the chain all sitting there, okay? Aligned, in order. Don't panic if one flips over. You will be okay, I promise. It may annoy you, but so just lay them out. I do find it easiest to, oh gosh, I'm trying to thread this needle. It does not love it. Okay. I do find it easiest to take this piece and can see they're all laying nicely, and you drag it along whatever surface you're working on. So this is my back side. I want to make sure I'm looking at the back side on the other side, which I'm not. That's the front side. So this is my back side. So I know I'm picking up starting there, right? So nobody panic. Nobody panic. Panicking doesn't help. I promise. Nobody panic. Okay, I'm going to pick up my first one. Nobody panic. Nobody panic. Can you tell I'm telling myself that? So again, I'm going to give it a little pull. It's grabbing on nicely, so I'm not having to worry. Go up through 2-3 beads. Nice and snug. Down through the next 2 or 3 beads. Now you may be saying, but Jill, look at the chains. They're all like haphazard. You will be okay. It will be okay, I promise. Lay them out again, grab the next one. There's no guarantee in getting these to be super straight all the time. If you are really gonna need them to be super straight, then this step will take you a while. And embrace it. Embrace the peacefulness of just having them lay. But keep in mind, when you pull this tight like this, you're gonna want to be aware. If you're really trying to make sure they're super straight, you're gonna be aware of how it's laying and maybe roll it around and keep re-pulling this thread to try and have it sit exactly how you want. I'm not like that. Close counts, because when you're wearing it, it's not going to be sitting totally straight anyway, right? It's going to be okay, I promise. And I've seen some cool intentional twisting of the chain, which you could do as well. Just keep in mind that's going to keep it a bit shorter, which is again why we add all the chain and then we measure our bracelet. So we're just doing what we did on the other side and making sure it's nice and taut. Going back up through 3 beads, 2 beads, whatever sort of works for your gut feelings here. Go down through, just make sure if you've gone up 3 here, you need to go down 3 there. Don't like now go down 4 because you'll have a diagonal thread sitting visible. does take a little longer. That's fine. Beading is not about racing to the end. At least no handcraft quality control I've ever done has worked better by going faster. But again, to each their own. I listen to music between pressing play and pause and whatnot, or record and pause on these. And so the songs are going through my head as I'm sitting here talking to you and trying to think of what to say. So the song is in my head. No, I'm not singing it right now. That would be really sad, because that was not a song. It sounded more like a nursery rhyme. We're almost at the end of this part. Down through the last 3, adding the last piece of chain and burying our thread again. All right, last little buddy. Up through a bunch of them. I'm going to hide it up this way. Nice and snug. Now I'm looking at the correct side to hide this thread bridge. I'm going to go down. Oh, that feels a bit of resistance, so I don't really want to do it there. We're going to go farther and hide this one. My goodness, my needle just does not want to cooperate. That's because my face is so far away from my beadwork right now because, you know, recording. All right. We're going to go down through a few, and we want to be hiding it where our thread bridge is. I'm going to go back on itself and down through a few more. So I'm just going to hide this in my beadwork and then trim it. And then we are done this part. Then we are going to do the measuring for the bracelet, so you can finish it off and attach our findings. All right. So I'm going to trim that little buddy off. You trim your little buddy off. And then I'm going to pause it for a sec, and then we are going to talk about measuring for the length. Okay. Bracelet. So now we're going to do the calculations for how long you want your bracelet. On your sheet, there's a calculation showing you this distance to this distance. So that last row where it's 4 bead wide to 4 bead wide, there's that. And there's your chain distance, okay? So what you're going to do is you are going to write down on the sheet the calculation or the amount, the length you want your bracelet, your desired bracelet length. You're going to deduct this length from that. You're going to deduct that length from that. And you're going to be left with a number. So say your number is 5 inches. You're going to divide that in half, which means each of your woven pieces is going to be 2.5 inches long. Okay, so our stopping point, you're going to go, okay, so my stopping point, that left me with, I'm just shy of 2 inches, so I need to add enough black rows that it gets to 2.5 inches. This is not my actual calculations. I'm just saying if this was your calculations, okay? So what you're going to do is that number that you, once you subtracted the chain and you subtracted your findings, whatever number you're left with, you divide that in half. Okay, so if you're Canadian, that might be easier to do in millimeters. If you're American, I'm not 100% sure how you do all these little smaller calculations. Point, whatever, a fraction, you're doing fractions. That's why Canadians do centimeters, because we're not fond of fractions. We like nice, organized things. Anyway, so if I needed to get 2.5 inches on each side to make my 5 inches, then I'm just going to keep adding rows until my last full width row, so my last 6 bead wide row in black, which is why we started at this end, is at my 2.5 inch mark, 2.5 inch mark, and I'm going to meet you when you're done adding the length to each side. Okay? So, bracelet people, you're gonna pause it here and you're gonna add your length. So I'll see you in a minute. One more thing. Make sure when you're adding your length, you are looking at the correct side of your beadwork. So you want to look and make sure it kind of looks like roof tiles, right? You're looking at the thread bridges are on the bottom side of each row. So just make sure that that's the side you're looking at when you're adding your beads. Okay, go bead. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so I've added my woven section on each side. Are they the same length? Nope. I added one too many rows on one side. I'm really excited this is happening on camera. So I'm removing my needle. I secured my last bead with an extra loop just to really make sure it was on there well. And what I'm going to do now is remove the extra beads because I did one too many rows. Which, if you're really needing to fine tune your length, you will need to do one extra row on one side over the other, and nobody would ever know other than you. That's the beauty of these beads being so small, is you're able to really fine tune the length of the bracelet. I am using my needle to pull the thread back out of my beadwork. Do not keep your needle on and start trying to backtrack, weave through your beadwork because there are so many threads going through here. What you actually want to do is find the thread you need to grab and pull on it with your needle. So like here, I need to grab one of those thread bridges. So I just kind of pick at it and one of them will come loose because it is going to be the one that is the most recent one with the loose end attached will start coming undone. This, because I've wrapped around twice, one of these will be looser to grab to, so there's that one. Pull that out and pull these last couple beads off. And now we've backtracked a row. Ta-da! So what I meant to say is now that we've added our 2 sides, we have 2 tails, and we are going to finish each side by adding 4 beads. I'm just dabbing my nose with a Kleenex. So now we are going to finish and add our findings for the bracelet on each side. So we have our little wire guards and the very end finishing move. So we're at number 13 on your list. We're picking up our 2 beads to add our little last 4 beads here. So you're weaving these on the same way that you did all your other beads, making sure that we're looking at the correct side of our beadwork. Adding the last 4. Personally, I like it to taper just a little bit before we add our wire protectors on there. Okay, so on this particular side, we have come up through the 3rd bead. Okay, I'm just gonna go underneath our thread bridge here just to kind of give it a little extra stability. I'm gonna pause for a sec. Okay, I just wanted to make sure my wire guards were just, sometimes they're kind of squashy. You'll see yours, sometimes they're a little pinched there. So I just opened it back up a little bit so that it's sitting about the right width. So I want it to end up being straddling my middle 2 rows there. So when you're adding this, I find it works best to pinch it between my fingers so that the thread isn't trying to be a little wily and come out that tube. So I will stick my needle up through the one side and pinch it all through my fingers like this. And that's how I pull my thread through. It helps keep your thread nice and smooth and not get caught up in the seam of the wire guard. So I've gone around and out the other side. I'm going underneath my thread bridge between bead 3 and 4 / bead 1 and 2, whatever way you want to look at it. And I'm going to pull that through. Now again, I want to pinch my wire guard between my fingers to keep my thread nice and under control. And I'm pinching the tube section, not the whole wire guard per se. Now you want to make sure your thread is landing in that little trough of the wire guard before you pull it too tight. So because I went under my thread bridge, it's kind of holding it all in place there. So now I'm going to go back up through that tube, again, pinching between my fingers. My thumb is actually just against it right now. It's not both fingers. It's just really my thumb. I guess it was kind of both fingers. And now we're going to go down through the other side, again, pinching between to keep your thread under control. So we've looped over this thread bridge twice. I'm going to go down, because I came up through this bead, I'm going to go down through the one next to it. So because I came up through the third bead, I'm going to go down through this outside fourth bead. It really doesn't matter if you do the third or fourth. I'm just trying to kind of give it a reason to stay between the two. So guess what we're doing? Burying our thread. So I'm going back through a bunch of rows. I'm making sure to look at that same side where I want my thread bridge to hide, which is the technical side I was looking at when creating my piece. And I'm just going to kind of jaunt through these beads a little bit to hide it. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. This is the same maneuver that you do to connect for your earrings. I'm going to do one more because I want it to be on the back side when I trim it. Okay. So that is one side, and you are going to repeat that on the other side of your bracelet. And then we're going to attach our findings. I'm going to remove my needle from this. I'm going to get rid of that thread because it has gone through a lot of beads, and I don't want to use kind of used thread on other stuff unless I do have a whole pile. I'm not saying be wasteful. I do have a pile of extra threads from other pieces. So I'm going to weave over a little bit to start this new one because I'm coming out through the edge. So I'm just weaving over a couple to add my first 2 beads up here. And we're going to continue and add the other 2 one at a time. And up through this one and add our last bead. And now you are going to add your wire protector. I'm just going to back up through there and be ready to go. Okay, so we are going to, I had to pause for a second. We are going to add the other thread protector. Oh, wire protector, thread protector, same thing, FYI. I just went under the thread bridge just to help kind of center it a little bit. I'm going to pinch that between my fingers while I pull my thread through, just like before. And again, I can do the same thing on this side, right? Before I go through that bridge. Perfect. Up through this, I'm going to squish it between my fingers. And now this time when I go down through this one, because I came up through that last bead, I'm going to go down through the third one of those center ones. All right. And we're going to hide our thread. Oh, see what happened there with my thread? It fell out of that ditch. So you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on that before you secure it. There we go. I am going to go down a few more rows before, I guess I can weave back up a little bit here. Making sure when I'm trying to hide my thread, I'm always looking at the side with the bridges so that I'm hiding my thread in amongst thread bridges that are already there. And also making sure my thread does not get caught on anything. I'm on the wrong side of my beadwork, aren't I? I am. We're just going to do this again. Then we're going to go up a little bit. All right. And I am on the correct side to trim a little tail. Do. So that's it. In your kit, this, I'll use my old pliers for this. So needle nose pliers required for this. You're going to just don't do this hard or quick or anything like that. You're just going to gently start pushing that down. If you have one of the ring tools, loop tools, use that because it's going to edge that down in a gentler fashion. So we've attached that on our one side. And now, needle nose pliers. I don't know where my little ring thing is. So on our other side, we are attaching our little heart charm with our oval jump ring. And friends, we have completed the bracelet. Ta-da! Okay. And I suggest opening and closing this a few times before you actually put it on. So that is the bracelet. Okay. Oh my God, who even has a home phone anymore? Anyway, so glad you got to see that. Bracelet's done. Now we're going to finish off the earrings. So if you have the earrings, this is the little time marker that you shall see on your on the bottom, where you're going to join us and do your earrings. So for your earrings, you are going to complete the black section and add these wire protectors just like we did a minute ago for the bracelets. You're going to add them in that same fashion. Okay, so now you should have your 2 woven pieces with your wire protectors on there ready to add your chain. Okay, so you followed your pattern, you are now at the end, and you are now ready to add your chain. So the chain for the earrings is a little different than the chain for the bracelet now. I mean that only because we've got different lengths. Okay, so you will receive it on a piece of thread like this, so it is easy to drape it the way I'm draping it. This is an upcycled piece of suede. It is my favorite thing to use to bead on. It literally was like an old skirt or an old jacket or something. I don't remember at this point what one this was. So I have them laid out in order of size, length. So you may choose to do them in order of length, like I did. So decide whether you want them the long part on the side with the longer piece of color work, right? So the higher color work here, and then I put that as my the same side as the long pieces, or vice versa, whatever you like. Or sometimes it's kind of fun to do your fringe kind of all varying degrees and lengths in there. Or You can also cut your fringe to all be the same length, but please, please remember, it's like cutting your bangs. It is a very delicate process. You don't want to keep like, oh no, oh no. So cut off the bulk of the length and then fine tune how much you want to cut off. I quite like the length that I have given you in these kits, and I quite like that tapered look. That's my jam. So that is what we're going to do with adding the chain on these ones. So it's the same method to add the chain as we did in the bracelet. It's just you need to be a little bit more cautious about the length that you're picking up when you're doing it. And we bury the thread the same way. So if you did not watch the bracelet video and you are now just joining us for the earring video, we grab, because I want my short ones on the same side as the shorter color work, I'm grabbing my first short one. I'm going to test that it's just catching properly by giving it a little pull. Don't yank on it, just a little nudge, I want to be looking at the back side of my beadwork because I want the thread bridges to be on the top side of the row. The pattern says to go up 2 rows. I personally am going to go up 3. It's completely, I mean, you could go up 7 rows if you really wanted. It doesn't quite matter. So I've gone up 3, so I make sure I'm going to the neighbor's house here, going down through their yard, and we're going down through 3. Oh, of course, the thread is going to get caught there. That's Murphy's Law. So I've added my shortest one. Now I want to add the second shortest. So when I'm picking up my chain, I'm grabbing every other one from this pile that I've laid out there. I'm going to test that it's catching fine. Perfect. And we've got our second one in there. And I'm just going to give them a little pull so that they're sitting nicely. You get the hang of this? Well, that literally missed 2 of those beads. Sorry, I know I drift out of view. So, I'm going to skip. I'm going to grab the third one there. I'm going to give it a little tug, make sure he's caught on there. He is. Up through 3 beads again. You can see my thread is getting a little twisty. So I'm going to drop my needle when I'm done this to let it untwist a bit. Meantime, I'm hanging on and giving that a little tug. So I'm just letting go of my needle to let the thread unravel if it needed to. Oh my God, I just stabbed my finger with the needle. Oh, it's so quick, but it really smarts. Whew. Going down through the next 3. Skipping down, grabbing a chain, giving a little test. Picking it up, getting it, making sense. Okay. And make sure you're grabbing that very last loop and you're not accidentally grabbing like the second to last loop or something on that piece of chain, because boy, that would be a bummer. And then we're adding our last one. And just the same way we buried the chain every other time, that's how we're going to bury the chain this time. Oh, come on, buddy. Come on. There we go. Test it. It's all good. All right. We have added our chain. Boy, I love the feel of chain. I really do. Oh, it's so badass too. Look at it. Oh. Okay. I'm going to hide my chain here. Or hide my thread. I'm all about the chain. That's all I can think about. So I'm weaving back and forth, making sure each time I'm switching rows, I'm looking at hiding the thread bridge on the right side, on the correct side, I should say. This feels snug, so this might actually be a good place to stop pulling it. I'm on the back side, which is perfect. Now you're going to do the same on your other earring. Okay, so you're going to do the same with the other earring. And then to attach your ear hooks, which there's my ear hook. To attach your ear hooks, again, you're going to grab your pliers. You do not pull, you're going to twist so that that opens. You're going to make sure you're looking at the side you would like to look at, which is the side where we did not hide all our threads. And then we twist to shut it. There's your badass earrings. Got a little bit of 80s flair, and I'm telling you, it is all about the chain. I fully admit it is all about the chain. So I'm going to finish off my other earring. You guys enjoy making your bracelets and your earrings. And I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial and all of its tangents. Okay, bye.